Welcome everybody to the George Mokwena live show. I, of course, am your host, George Mokwena, and this is the place where we can speak about a couple of topics that I've picked out from the news that has come out, and maybe we can take those topics and turn them into bigger conversations. This, of course, is my show, but there is a live show where everybody can jump in and you can be a lot more interactive with me and actually give me your voice. That happens 7 p.m. Monday to Thursday, but because we're in Euro times, most nights I am going to be doing a watch-along of either Germany, France, England, or Portugal. That is the one that has been voted in. So thank you guys so much for joining me here. And feel free to comment and let me know what you think of this. And also, subscribe, share this, speak about it, and do all of that. Now, let's get straight into it. Number one, the first topic we're going to speak about today is TS Galaxy. TS Galaxy has been given a transfer ban. TS Galaxy owe Bernard Yao Kwasi around 1.8 million rand, and this case has been taken to FIFA, and FIFA has decided that they're going to be banned for 3 transfer windows. They join a long list of teams, a long list of South African teams that have been banned because of payment issues, either to players or to their former clubs for breaking contracts. There's a long list. I mean, just to think of a few, you had Royal AM that was banned for Nurkovic. You had Royal AM that was then banned immediately after for Nascimento. So this season they couldn't sign anybody. Now there's a Nascimento one on top. You have Chippa United with Abdi Banda, a Tanzanian. They also got banned by FIFA because of this. You have a bunch of different, you have Richards Bay. Right, Richards Bay were also banned for 3 transfer windows because of their non-payment of Ovela Ochieng. An Ivorian player who, funny enough, came from Marumo Gallants to Richards Bay in the same situation. So Gallants was also banned because of the same thing, which is very interesting. It's very interesting to me because it seems as though these teams, man, they struggle with this transfer stuff. They struggle with payments and all of that. But another interesting through line through all of this is the type of player that is actually winning these cases versus these clubs. So if you look at it, Nascimento, Nurkovic, Abdi Banda, Ovela Ochieng, Dex with Kaizer Chiefs. What is the common thread here? The common thread is that these guys are foreigners. These guys are foreigners with foreign representation most of the time. And what tends to happen is that where our own representation for our own players within our league goes left at times, it seems with international players, they're able to always get their money back, they're able to always get the bans inflicted, they're able to always do those type of things. Now, to be fair, the one thing that they have an advantage over our local players is that the local players have to go through PSL structures before they get to FIFA. So if I have a dispute with a club, I have to first start with the PSL and go through their structures, which also are also run by the clubs. So I don't know how fair that is going to be. But then after that, that is when I can get to FIFA, whereas international players can go directly to FIFA, which provides them the advantage of not having to deal with the local structures. And the conversation about local structures is very important because this is where I want to take this conversation. If we're seeing so much uproar and so many instances of transfer issues and contractual issues playing out within the PSL with these foreign players, it takes me to a place where I ask, do local players go through the same issues? How many local players have been screwed over by teams and you don't hear anything about them? You know, I have so many questions about how transfers work in the PSL and why our financials are hidden. But you hear stories come out from players who say, guys, Mina, I wasn't given a chance to negotiate a contract. I went into the chairman's office and the chairman said, you are now this player. You are a Paris player, you are now a Sundowns player, you are expected at Club tomorrow. You're a development player who's called into an office and given a contract, and they say to you, you know, just sign. You sign. How many stories have we heard from the legends where they just came in and they signed? Okay, bangibonisa the last 3 pages, but sign lana. They gave me my petrol card, they gave me my bank account, they said I need to pick a car tomorrow. Jiggy, later on, you don't know what's happening with your finances. Later on, you've got all types of different payments that you have to account for because the team is not accounting for it. How many players, local players, have had issues, let's say maybe, with contracts where people are just being let go? Half of these contracts are literally because these players are, half of these issues, these problems that are causing the bans are simply because clubs are saying, my guy, we haven't played you, we're letting you go. And these guys are saying, Mara, the contract says something different. And when I talk about the systems and the mechanisms within the country that govern these things within our football, you also have to look at the agents, representatives, and the teams. The teams, I don't think, are always negotiating with the good of the player in mind. I think they have budgets, they have requirements, I think they have goals that they need to get to. So you're probably expecting agents to be the people that are going to step in and do right by these players and negotiate in good faith and get their players a good deal. But the agents don't want to risk their relationships. If I've got a relationship with a club because they've got one of my players and now I'm rocking the boat with that club, at what point will that club turn around and say, you know what, no thank you, but your 20 other clients, we don't even want to see them? You know, I listened to Royal AM's lawyer when he went on to Andile's show, and you could tell, good damn man, the sports side of these contracts, the sports contract side, doesn't make sense. He was trying to argue labor laws in the Nurkovic case, and Nurkovic's representative, when they called him, he was like, hey guys, I've tried to explain these things, we're going to take it to FIFA, and we'll go from there. We'll hear what the outcome is going to be, and they won. So, are those the people drawing up the contracts? Tim Sukazi is one of the most famous agents in the country. This is what he was before TS Galaxy, before he bought the status and created TS Galaxy, or got them promoted. So if these things are happening with Tim's team, what's going on in the PSL? And part of me really just thinks that these teams make it up as they go because the majority of the players that they're going to face either do not know what is entitled to them. They don't know what's in the contract. They don't understand what's happening. Cassius Malula gave an interview before leaving to go that side where he said, I am just a soccer player. What was decided in my contract, what was put into place, what the clauses are, I don't care. You speak about the case that is ongoing between Mamelodi Sundowns and Pitso Mosimane, where you are hearing stories, and I'm going to call them stories because they are alleged at this point, where their clauses that they wanted to put into contracts were turned down. There were contracts signed in parking lots, as described by Pitso's agent, that didn't have the requisite clauses that they wanted, but are still legally binding. We speak about players. There was an interview, I'm forgetting the Sundowns player, but he gave an interview where he spoke about how a coach arrived, he didn't want me, and I was pulled into an office by Patrice Motsepe, who gave me R1 million out of the goodness of his heart. What does your buyout clause look like? Is it not that million maybe, and maybe it's being spun to make it look a certain way? You know, they tell you every day in business and all of those things that you can't trust the other party. And I feel like our players are taken for a ride. If you listen to the agents talk, if you listen to all those people, you hear one side. But when you look at the facts, these are all international players that are getting these transfer bans instituted on these teams. Do we really believe that there's no South African players that have grievances? Do we really believe that South African players are being done right by? We had a very similar conversation in the group, in the WhatsApp group. Click on join. You're on YouTube, click on join in order to join the WhatsApp group. The link is in the members area. We had a similar conversation where, again, the story becomes, who's negotiating on your behalf? How do you know your worth? When these players step into these negotiating places with Bob Prasten, with a lot of the chair people, with the club representatives, do they know what they're worth? Do they know what they're coming in for? Do they know what they could get? Junior Khanye told a story about how he sat back in, at the time when he was going for his second contract, if I'm not mistaken, he sat back and he was watching. He was the guy playing a lot of games. But yet there was another guy who he then finds out later on was earning so much more money than him. So for me, man, this situation makes me ask so many questions, man. I have so many different questions that I want to find out how these things necessarily work and why they are not transparent with it. I don't remember, and you can correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, I don't remember a story coming out where they told us that no, player X was wanted by Mamelodi Sundowns and they turned down the first 3 offers because they wanted X amount of money. We don't get that in our league. We don't know what is good, what is bad. So for me, it brought about those couple of questions about how our clubs are run. It brought about some of questions about what the structure looks like. You then question the representatives and the teams, and you realize that locally, everything is interconnected. Even that PSL committee that you have to go stand in front of when you've got problems as a South African player, it's a PSL committee. It's not a separate third-party arbitration. Often you have to go fight it elsewhere you have to go to CAS in order to do those things because internally there isn't the same commitment to actually figuring out the problem. It's more to protect the teams. And it's just so sad because I feel that there's a lot of players that have been hard done by, that could have had better contracts, that could have had better moves, that could have had better protection, for lack of a better term, and they don't have it. You have to be one of the lucky ones. And to the PSL clubs, at what point, guys, do you learn? At what point do you see that it's happened with Nurkovic, you do it with Nascimento, same club? It's happened with Marumo Gallants. Richards buys the guy and does the same exact thing. You saw the case. Gallants lost. Banned, they needed to pay some money. You guys go and do the same exact thing. You saw the Chiefs is getting banned. You saw the different teams, Abu Chipa getting banned. But yet we still find the same actions happening. Who are the people? To go back to an older conversation, who are the people that are in these clubs, who are running these clubs every day, that are creating these contracts? And why aren't our teams learning? We saw what a transfer ban did to Kaizer Chiefs. You could argue that we saw what a transfer ban did to Royal AM this season after letting go of Abu Potsang. They barely survived. They fought that survival. Are they learning? Guys, that was the first topic that I wanted to discuss today. Let's go on to the second one. So, for those who don't know, the man in the picture is Morena Ramorebuli. He is a coach of coach in Botswana. He coaches Galaxy, Jordaan Galaxy, a team that knocked out Pirates. For those who want a reference, they knocked out Pirates last year in the preliminary rounds of the CAF Champions League, and they played in the Champions League. They've just won the league again. He's done the double. He's just won the league again, which means that he's going to stamp his ticket again to get a chance to get into the Champions League through the preliminary rounds that all the teams have to play. He's been linked with the Skukune job. Skukune, of course, have now finally come out and said that Usiema has been fired. We knew that from the suspension. From the moment they spoke about the suspension, we knew that they had parted ways. This is a tactic in South Africa. Kholo Usiema, who did very well in the couple of months that he had with the team, turn them around, put them into fourth place, for them to play Confed, for example. So there's rumors that they're looking for a new coach, and Ramo Rebuli is the top candidate, or one of the candidates. I want to speak about two things. Number one, is it an upgrade to come back to South Africa from Botswana? And I want to put it in this sense. Jwaneng has money. They won the league. He's playing Champions League again. Why would you then choose to come back to South Africa? And I understand the South African league is better run, is commercially more viable. But can you imagine going from playing regular Champions League football to coming back here and maybe fighting for a third or fourth place? You're not going to win the league. Arguably, you might not even come second. Knowing that Pirates is in the hunt, Stellenbosch might be in the hunt, Supersport is always there. It's a very tall order to try win that league. So is it really an upgrade to say that Ramo Rebuli coming back to South Africa is going to be a good thing? And you know what I love about Ramo Rebuli? He's building his name. We didn't know who he was. He was coaching the COSAFA team at some point. He was in SA. And it goes back to the point that I always say that maybe you should go outside to go build your name with people that are going to maybe respect you a little bit better, give you a chance. Because the South African league is a very closed off coaching league in terms of coaching. So having Ramo Rebuli coaching on that side, going to things like the Champions League. Guys, last year we had one team in the Champions League. We have not had a steady second team in South Africa in the Champions League. You could win the league 3, 4, 5 times with Jwaneng and play Champions League every year and go elsewhere. Why not go to Morocco, Tanzania, all of those other places? Egypt. Why not go there? Maybe go to Saudi or anywhere from there. Why come back here? And I'm hoping that if he really is a front runner, make sure that contract is fine. We just spoke about contracts right now. Make sure that contract is proper. But the secondary thing that I want to speak about under this topic, there's a trend in the PSL. And for me, it's an irritating trend. You hire your overseas coaches with the UEFA licenses and all of that. They fail. Then you bring in a local coach who does well, but you're unwilling to give him a contract, a proper contract. You're unwilling to let him go into a transfer market and buy players. You look at your Dan Dances, you look at your Siemas who have done well. Siema did well at 2 separate clubs. Remember, he's part of the reason why Polokwane City was a top, 5, 6 club? Left that one midway through, joined as Kukune for 5 months, got them into 4th place. So we see them do these things, but the clubs don't respect them enough to even go, okay, guy, you did so well. We're going to trust you. Think about Musa Nyatama. How many times has he had to come in, step in and save the club? He swallows. But yet at no point do they go, you've done such a stellar job. Here's the job. Here's a proper contract. Here's building blocks. But yet we see the foreign coaches. Guys, remember for khoza, Romain Foltz. Remember him failing at every place that he went, but getting signed and getting given jobs. In fact, at Amazulu, they wanted to keep him and make him the technical director. Where is that energy for when Dan saves you from a relegation? Where's that energy for when Siema puts you top 4? Where's that energy when Brendan Truter back then makes Morocco Swallows a number 2 team. Then you hear about the phantom suspensions. You hear about the phantom technical directors that are brought in. How do we grow our football if the guys that are doing well are not given a chance to go and do well even more? How do we grow our football, again going back to even the previous topic that we spoke about, when everything local is looked down upon? When everything local you try and squeeze everything out of. No, Zwagala, Bambi team, 4 months. After 4 months, we'll come and review this thing. And the part that really gets on my nerves is that today you fired this coach who put you there. Tomorrow you bring a random coach from somewhere else. Think about the Pablo Franco Martins that came in. Think about the Fultzes. Think about Jose Rivero, even though he's doing well. Mandla Ncikazi and Fadlu got to a CAF Confed final. Lost to RS Berkane, if I'm not mistaken. Why not give them the job? Why not try them in the job? Hey man, you've earned this time. Musa Nyatama, you've saved us for the 3rd season now. After the Middendorps came in, after all of these different player coaches came in. You know what? For the next season, we're going to give you a chance at this job. A proper hit, a proper chance. We're going to back you. Guys, we all know the phone calls that are made. We all know the phone calls that are made when these teams are struggling. And we all know the phone calls that are made when the teams are doing well and the coach needs to be suspended. Ramo Rebul is not going to be cheap. I hope. I genuinely hope that his representatives don't make him cheap. Flying in a coach from Europe is not cheap. Housing, transport, sometimes family, flights in and out, their actual salary, all of those things. When you had a CM in your pocket, when you had a 10 cents in your pocket, what is it? What is it about local teams that they would much rather screw over our players, our coaches, but they will do right by those overseas people? They will do right. Huh? When Jasmine is not your agent, they will do right by you. First topic, we literally spoke about it. First topic, we spoke about the contracts that these teams are giving out and that the international players are getting all their monies back when they're wronged. I see the same thing happening with our coaches. And it's not even like they're doing badly. Guys, Tantans to this day still has the only trophy that TS Galaxy has won. I don't hear Tim Sugazi waxing lyrical about what Tantans was able to do. But yet he's talking up this UEFA Pro. Oh, you know, every team needs a UEFA Pro coach. UEFA Pro has not even sniffed top 4. Has not finished in a place where you can be like, okay, what about Rivero? At least they're doing something. So it's something we have to look at. We also have to get over this attitude that we are better. That Ramo Rebuli should be thankful that Kukune is coming for him. That is a Champions League playing coach who knocked out the second best team in Africa, in South Africa. Who won at Wydad. Why then do we expect him to grovel and be happy coming back here? We're doing it with Pitso as well. Why should Pitso come back to the PSL? What is there to gain from conquering the PSL? It's an attitude we need to get past. But also, can we please respect our own? We're killing so many bright coaches. And I don't know why. They said that there's people in the background that make noises when the coach is doing well. There's people in the background that actually run teams. But on the face of it, it doesn't make sense. And it's happening all through the PSL, even in the first division. Nangu Tentens, again, the main culprit. We've spoken about him. I don't want to go deep into what I expect from him, but he's taken Baroka from a mid to lower table team and put them up into a playoff to potentially get into the PSL. They get rid of him mid-playoff. You take Gavin Hunt, example at Kaizer Chiefs. It's a transfer ban year. You can't sign players. You go with what you have and you get us to a semi-final of the CAF Champions League. Something that Chiefs has never done. We don't have a star. There's 2 stars in SA. We don't have one of those. This coach gets you there, he gets fired. Then his assistant takes over, gets you through the semi-final. He gets demoted for who? Oh yeah, that English guy, Stuart Baxter. We need to respect our own. Next topic. So obviously we are now watching the Euros. The Euros is the story of right now. We're watching a lot of those games. It's the tournament that's on right now. Club football is closed. A very interesting thing that I've seen has come up, and I want to have a conversation about it. Gareth Southgate is obviously the coach of England. Gareth Southgate has talent upon talent upon talent upon talent at his disposal. They have all of the name brands. We saw last night with France, Didier Deschamps, French coach, also has all the big name brands with him. Mbappe, Giroud, Camavinga, Griezmann. It's a stacked team. But we've seen them struggle. England was not convincing for their 1-0 win. France has not been convincing for their 1-0 win. And I think there's other things at play here. And it's the curse of a big team. The curse of coaching a big, successful, or a stacked team. There's 2 things. One, how do you manage everybody? PSG has to deal with one ego. Maybe at Man City, there's a couple of egos, but they're separate. You've got more time with them. You go to Spain, you've got Real Madrid, there's probably egos there. You've got more time to massage the players and learn how it works. At international level, you are bringing all of these people into a team. And there's pressure. There's pressure of expectation, but there's also pressure of you can't bench Foden. You can't leave a player X out, Trent Alexander-Arnold out. You can't do this. You can't have Griezmann not play. You can't have Dembele not bench because you have Mbappe on the pitch. There's so much pressure. And I think we look past it. I think we don't realize that, in as much as having that quality at your disposal is great, it's amazing. It's not FIFA. It's real life. And I feel as though where England and France are struggling is that their coaches, for lack of a better term, excuse my French, don't have the balls to make a choice. Hi guys, I've got a system. There's a particular system that I play. I love playing a 3-4-1-2. I love playing a 4-4-2. I like doing a 4-3-3. And frankly, in my 4-3-3, I cannot have Trent and Walker in the same pitch. And I will stand by it and I will die by it. They don't have that. Last night we watched a French team that didn't have a system. We watched a French team where Mbappe miraculously had to get an on goal, had to find an on goal in that Austrian defense. And you'd imagine, man, that you're thinking to yourself, Ooh, I'm waiting to see this player combine with that player, combine with that player, so that we can see what they can give us. And this is where you have to give props to certain coaches. You have to give props to your Pep Guardiolas. There's a demand. There's a high level of players, and he goes, no, guys, it's my football. And if you step out of line, I move you. And if you don't fit my system, I move you. And if you don't live up to the standard that we need to have, I move you. That is where you find sympathy for coaches like Coach Rulani, where the weight of your expectations with Mamelodi Sundowns is already on your shoulders. Now you have to rotate these players. Now you have to figure out how to play these players. Some of these guys have contractual things that are in there that force them to play. And this is a short one. My only advice that I would give to these two coaches that I mentioned, Didier Deschamps and also Gareth Southgate, is, guys, live and die by your own sword. Gareth Southgate, if you want to play boring football with boring English players and you don't want to have to fit Foden into your team and you don't want to have to fit all those people, don't do it. It's not worth it. Rather the media crucify you for something you chose than the media and the fans and everybody crucifying you over what they want and can't work. You know, sometimes as fans, there's things we want. I want that player and that player. I want this coach and that thing. I want that person. We don't look to the chemistry. We don't look to the structure. We don't look to any of those type of things when we're speaking about these type of things. So why, Gareth Southgate, Didier Deschamps, do you guys subject yourself to this? What's also interesting, the other way around, with smaller teams in this tournament that we've watched on the watch-alongs, you don't have to play expensive football. You don't have to be under pressure to play modern tiki-taka and all of those type of things. Sometimes you just have to be direct and cross that ball, man. It's your strength. You're good at it. Cross that ball, swallow your pride, and play that thing. Get the result. But there's so many factors that play, Shem, for these coaches. And I think for all of the talk that I give about coaches and what they need to do, I think we need to also understand a little bit of what they go through. I can't imagine picking the England squad, the backlash. I can't imagine having to select a starting lineup of those players. I can't imagine wanting to make a tactical change. 24th minute, I see something's not working, but can you imagine Bukayo Saka, Foden, or whoever walking off the pitch 24 minutes in? That would be a scandal. And big ups to coaches that don't care, you know, for all the stick that we give Hugo Bruce, all the pressure and all the noise we make. Hey, that man sticks to his guns. Which is a trait that I think is missing with these teams. So when we're watching these guys, have a little bit of compassion. I know I'm hard on these people, but have a little bit of compassion. Anyway, last topic for today. The main topic of the thumbnail. Over the past few weeks, and particularly over the past few days, I've been having some very interesting conversations in comments of my videos and things like that, about the state of African football. I've been having conversations where people keep repeating to me that, you know, Africa lacks the resources to do certain things. Africa's coming around to doing those type of things. They're fighting through barriers. We are inexperienced. For lack of a better term, we're inexperienced in trying to do the things that need to be done. And I can't help but having the same thing ring through my head. I think to myself, are we not giving them too much leeway? Are we being too lenient on the Confederation of African Football and African football as a whole? Are we saying things like they need more time and all of that and actually hurting them in the long run? for a history lesson. CAF is only 3 years younger than UEFA. UEFA, when they were brought into FIFA, or the FIFA was created, UEFA was brought in 1954. CAF was brought in 1957. Which means that these are very old clubs. This is a 67-year-old organization. This is not an organization that was started in the 90s. This is not an organization that is newborn, hasn't had time to figure out what they need to do. But yet when we speak about it, we speak on CAF as if man, Hashem. Hashem, how can we expect that from CAF? I've asked many tough questions here and on the show, my other show. I've asked many tough questions about our expectations of CAF, about how it works, that side, about what they're giving us, about the little things that they could be doing in order to make our football better. Now, I want to be frank, I want to be honest, and I want to be fair to them. I am not expecting CAF to come out and change border policies. I'm not expecting CAF to come out and end wars in some cases. But what I'm expecting CAF to do is to move more to the benefit of our football and move us forward. Be innovative. And I think my biggest point here is that a lot of the problems that CAF is facing is not problems of inexperience. It's not problems of resources. It's a problem in that we don't have a commitment towards the football of this continent. Everybody wants power. They hold power. They're more interested in winning elections. Do you know why we respect what Tate Motsepe has come in to do at CAF? We respect that Tate Motsepe has had 2 years. Dr. Motsepe has had 2 years in charge of CAF, or in the upper hierarchy as president. 2 years. And we've seen strides in the women's game. We've seen strides in we had the AFL stuff. We've seen strides in the general running of of CAF. We've seen strides in the commercial viability of CAF, the types of profits that they made from AFCON, the types of strategies they used in AFCON. And I'm thankful to Tate Motsepe for coming in and doing those things. But can we be honest? Those are not difficult things to do. They're not meant to be as difficult as we make it sound. And we keep hiding behind the continent. We keep hiding behind money, lack of resources, and all of that stuff. We keep hiding behind it. So, what did Tate Motsepe do? CAF was still in the same place. He managed to go out and get sponsors. They managed to go out and rejig the budget. Are those things hard to do? Or are we just fooling ourselves into thinking that the rest of the world has it all together? The rest of the world is doing so much more. We're fooling ourselves that in Africa we can't ask for too much. We've had conversations about the PSL. Here, where people have told me that the PSL, founded in '96, a 28-year-old organization, is still figuring it out. You know, they're still trying to find their way. There'll come a time when things are done. Meanwhile, this is the same PSL that was so innovative in the beginning. They were so innovative. Dr. Irvin Khoza flying to England to go sit down with Manchester United's lawyers and English Prem people to figure out how to do a broadcast deal. To figure out how to take this league leaps and bounds around the continent. Yet we sit here now and we don't see the same type of innovation. We don't see the same type of structural reinforcement or sometimes even building new structures in order to make sure that this thing is viable. And it's not for lack of resources. It's lack of proper leadership and lack of proper, lack of that like I said, the commitment to make things better. We even lack just taking some funds now and maybe taking a loss today in order to build tomorrow. You know, I looked at the UEFA financials. I read them. In trying to wrap my head around this, I looked at the financials. Do you know that more often than not, for tournaments that are not the UEFA Champions League or the Euros, the men's Euros, those guys are going into negatives. And this is spending on media, this is spending on the tournaments, this is spending on everything that they put into it. They're usually going into the negatives. They don't reap the return. You think the Conference League is making money for them? But they understand that in 5 years' time, that Conference League is going to look like a completely different beast. It's going to benefit so many teams within that European ecosystem. They understand that if we start implementing these tournaments now and maybe making a loss, and maybe looking stupid or dumb, maybe taking extra money and trying to give it to the different teams and doing all of those things is only going to benefit us later on. The reason why Dr. Motsepe could turn around CAF in 2 years is because these things are not rocket science problems. But it took somebody who, for in all intents and purposes, functions outside of football. I know he's owned Mamelodi Sundowns for a while. I know he's been in and about. But it took somebody to come in and say, Mara guys, why are you guys sitting down? Why aren't we looking at different things? Okay, how do we do a women's CAF Champions League? You know what? Instead of adding the cost of everybody flying around, let's host it in Ivory Coast. Bring everybody in. Now we've got a solution. We've done the first one. We can expand going from there. Hey guys, you know, the Champions League, everybody complains about the same thing. The travel costs are too much for the smaller teams. How about we group them? If you look at the rest of football, UEFA, FIFA, and all those guys, they're they're so good at coming up with new things, trying them. Okay, it fails, we move on to the next thing. Now, a FIFA series. You know, let's take all of these countries, bring them into one place, and let's make it a festival. South Africa played Algeria, they played Andorra, you know, all in Algeria. There were other games happening. I want the innovation. I'm tired of the excuses. I'm tired of feeling sorry for African football. There's so many things that we can solve. Simple things. But we're waiting for a savior like Motsepe. We're waiting for our leadership within football to wake up one day and remember why we're doing all of this stuff. And these things that we're doing, honestly, it's not charity. The things that I'm asking for is not charity. I often often speak here about the softer side of football, the media side. You should see how much money UEFA spends on media. But anyway, the softer side. One of the master strokes of AFCON this year was to go, let's try get AFCON into as many homes as we can get it in. You should expand that. Let's try and get CAF created media into everywhere as part of our deals with a Supersport or a Canal Plus or New World TV. Part of it is that you're going to, or an SABC, part of that deal is that you're going to have to take some of our created media that highlights the good things that are happening, that reminds us of things that have happened, the PR stuff. You're going to have to take that stuff and implement it within each of the countries. Do you know why? Tomorrow, you will wake up with an audience. Tomorrow, you will wake up with eyes that you can go sell and get sponsorship. I say this here all the time. There's a reason why Channel 203 on Supersport, they are committed to reminding you. No, this was a great player. That guy was a great player. No, this guy was this. No, let's stoke some this. What's a fantasy football show? We're going to have a fantasy league show where we're going to speak about it because we've got our fantasy or whatever. We're going to have a show about it. Then we're going to have Righty and Mang Mang. Then we're going to have Goal Box. We're going to do all of these things so that me and you get almost propaganded into tying ourselves to England. And then England turns around to their sponsors and says, hey man, look at all the eyes we have. This is how much we're charging now. It's now something that you're going to want to come in and do. I've spoken about the PSL. You're telling me half of the teams can't have a TikTok account? An active TikTok account? You're telling me that the teams in the PSL could not do this? Yet they're going to cry later on about fan bases. And the sad part is that the best example of slacking, resting on your laurels, just so happens to come from Europe. Ligue 1 in France is struggling to get a broadcast deal. They had so much politique and behind the scenes things that happened that literally they are about 2 months away from starting their league. They don't have a broadcast deal. They're scrambling right now. I'm thankful for Patrice Motsepe for stepping in. Very thankful because he changed everything of how we even view CAF. But can that be adopted across the continent? And more importantly, can we stop babying them? No, they're trying, guys. 67 years. Intanga Zako, 70-year-old UEFA. I'm going to use them as the example. They just revamped their Champions League. There was a threat of a Super League and they went, let's change. Let's bring in 40 teams and figure out how we can get more games out of it and squeeze a little bit more out of it so we can get more euros in order to keep these teams happy. They're iterating. Meanwhile, our Champions League has been 16 teams for how long? With the same teams finishing with the same complaints. To play a preliminary game in the CAF Champions League, to qualify for the CAF Champions League when you're playing prelim games, you don't get anything for that time. Which means that there are teams that come from small leagues that have done very well, that have put themselves in a situation to then go and play in this Champions League and eye the money. But you run at a risk, for example. When do we get travel sponsors? You run the risk. You'll pay for all of those things. There are teams that drive 24 hours to go play games because they can't afford flights. They can't afford to do all those things. At what point do we, as Africans, and not even with the knowledge of the world? At what point do we as Africans say, we need to start making our football, innovating in our football, making it better, making sure that our players are not leaving to go seek a better standard overseas, to make sure that our coaches are not leaving because there's no point in staying here. Or even just questions. Sometimes I feel like we're so afraid to even ask the questions that need to be asked. We're afraid to put pressure on these organizations. And it's not a hate. Constructive criticism is great. That's how you grow. But we're so tied to this idea that, oh, it's Africa. Oh, we're struggling. Oh, there's no resources. Oh, there's no this, there's no that. We're so tied to it. That identity. I asked the question the other time when we were speaking about us versus everybody else. And I'm like, is there a situation where we can create African structures and have African teams that are going to be able to stand up to those teams overseas with African play? With our own skills and things that we have honed all the way down, that they can't do. Or we're going to sit back and say, no, they need to go to Europe and they need to go be, exposed to better structures and all of that stuff. Come on, guys. And I still say, the biggest example of what I'm talking about and the biggest show that this is not to do with all of that and it's not as hard as we make it out to be is Patrice Motsepe. 2 years. We've seen AFLs, we've seen the WAFCON become better covered, we've seen AFCON better covered, we've seen all types of growth. All of this could have been done. But we're waiting for a savior instead of looking at ourselves and saying, okay, we need to roll up our sleeves. We need to make this better for ourselves. Those guys that are holding seats and power, Bo Isa Hayato, I didn't know Isa Hayato was president for 29 years. Bo Isa Hayato, Bo Danny Jordaan, all of those people. I don't think they're going to change anytime soon. So we need to start facilitating those changes. We need to start asking questions. We need to start forcing things through. Because they are not. But anyway, guys, thank you so much for joining me. If you have not subscribed, please subscribe. I do this show Tuesday and Thursdays. And then I've got my normal show, Mondays to Thursday at 7 p.m., which is an open forum type of place. On TikTok, you can jump on to the actual show and tell me what you think about things. There, it's more about you. I ask you questions about whatever topic we're speaking about, and I hear from you guys. So please support that side. I also drop content almost every single day. So support, guys. Support, share, like, comment. Whether you agree with me or disagree with me, let's also start building these platforms. And stop waiting for SuperSport to do it. And stop waiting for SuperSport to have it running for us to support. We are also creators who are trying to change the conversations around African football. So support, guys. Support. My name is George Mokwena. I have been the host. This, of course, is the George Mokwena Show. I'll see you guys then a little bit later when we're going to be talking about a burning topic in African football. Thank you, guys.